Welcome again to our SECAC and PGCPS Town Hall meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Janie Payne, the president of our SECAC board, for our welcome and agenda tonight.
Oh, hello, everyone. It's so good to see the level of, just everyone showing up for this town hall. And this is our last town hall. The town halls were, to some degree, they were a bit of an experiment between Prince George's County Public Schools and also SECAC, and finding a way that we could provide a forum for our parents and really focus on the opportunity to hear from them and to engage in the topics that our parents and caregivers felt that were important. So this is the fourth one, and with every town hall, there's been action on the part of our colleagues at Prince George's County Public Schools. There's been an action plan. We've had some meetings with parents to further delve into the recommendations. So I'm very excited about our topic for this evening, which is collaboratively working to increase parent engagement. So that's going to be our topic. So welcome, everybody. I want to acknowledge Prince George's County Board of Education. And do we have any Board of Education members here with us this evening? If so, could you please acknowledge yourself, and if you would like to give a welcome to this group, we'd love for you to do so. So let me just make sure we have anybody. Okay. All right. We'll keep going, and if any of our board members show up, we'll make sure to acknowledge them. So our agenda for this evening is I'm pleased to be able to share with you the SECAC board election results and our new board officers for the 2025-2026 year. We're going to follow up from the March 2025 town hall meeting. As I indicated, with every town hall meeting, there is a follow-up in terms of the suggestions that our parents have made and caregivers have made. We'll actually, with David Reese and his team, engage in the actual town hall meeting, talk about some of the resources that are available to parents and caregivers, and then talk about next steps. So that's our agenda for this evening. So I'm very pleased to share with everyone. We did, as we do each year, we conducted a board election for those members who will have board positions in SECAC. And the next slide shares the results of that election. And so we have the president, who is Janie Payne, that's me. Our vice president, I'm pleased to announce Samantha Dawson-Williams, and I know Samantha is here with us this evening, so if you want to raise your hand. We have Genevieve Janai, who is our secretary. This is her second year as our secretary. A lot of work goes into that secretarial position. We have Alicia Baines, who is our treasurer. Community outreach, that's such an important position, and really how can we continue to get parents and caregivers involved. We have both Alexis Solis and Ogo. And I'm not going to mispronounce Ogo's last name. You can see it there. But those are the members of SECAC. And like I said, if you're here, please raise your hand. And this is I've already started working with this new group, and they're excited about the work that we're going to do on behalf of our children for 25 and 26. Congratulations to you all. And so now, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Marcy.
Hi, thanks, Janie. And as Janie said, we're going to recap the March 2025 town hall meeting. We've done this with each of our town halls, and we wanted to provide you with survey results so that you know what our survey participants have told us. So let's get started. I am going to place in the chat the link to the full survey results as far as numbers, but just kind of to give you an overview of the third town hall session. Um, it was 8 out of 9 respondents felt that the session was relevant to their needs. 9 out of 9 felt that the Zoom format worked well. 8 out of 9 felt that the date and time worked well. And 9 out of 9 respondents felt that the facilitators and presenters were well prepared. And just to give you a reminder of what our third town hall was, it was referencing we completed a problem of practice around social emotional learning and behavioral challenges in schools. Um, all right. So these are highlights of feedback, and I do want to tell you that they do skew very positively, but these were the results literally taken from the survey. I think this town hall was done so well. I like the beginning of updating the parents and caregivers, where we felt there was plenty of time and different ways for parents and caregivers to have our voices heard. And you'll get that again today as I hand it off after this survey. Great information sharing, very thorough. Some suggestions for future topics: strategies for de-escalation for staff, counter narratives for bias, and universal accommodations. Speaking more on training and resources to help parents avoid absenteeism, and focusing on solutions for behavioral issues and social emotional learning. And we had a suggestion about the grading policy and perhaps having 2 week summer school sessions, the noting of the amount of testing and student cell phone use in schools. One of the things we do at the end of every survey is to tell us something that you're either that's a win during the school year, or that is something that you're looking forward to. Um, and something that folks were looking forward to at the end of the school year included students meeting their end of the year standards. Someone's talked about not bringing work home and working every single day, having free time to relax and enjoy quality time with family and friends. Someone mentioned summer break, getting a break and teaching sons some things that she didn't feel that they had energy or time to do during the school year. And someone else was very much in agreement for the break. So just some quick information, summary data and numbers for our special education town hall. We had 128 people registered, 75 people attended. We received 16 questions overall during that town hall. One of them required direct follow-up, and the number of questions answered were the 15 out of the 16, and number of recommendations provided to PGCPS were 7. As we've done in the past, we're going to compare those to the questions that have come from the other town halls, and if there are additional questions that we need to address, we'll follow up with those in the coming months. We've issued a written FAQ after each town hall that you can find on our PGCPS website. So I am going to turn it over to Trinell Bowman, our Associate Superintendent.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Good evening, families and community members that are attending with us, as well as our PGCPS staff. One of the things that I appreciate our SECAC board holding us accountable for were the recommendations through parent advocacy that came forward last April of 2024. And what we've been doing at each town hall meetings is providing you a status update of those recommendations and where we are. So on this slide, as you can see, where it's ongoing for our students to really be able to participate in extracurricular activities, be in leadership opportunities with their peers and staff. So that remains ongoing. And we definitely know that we have concrete examples of where students with disabilities have stepped up in leadership roles and supported our district throughout. The other thing that we committed to doing was the town hall meetings. You see that we're at our very last town hall meeting of the year. And so that remains the last one in process, which is happening tonight. On the next slide, we wanted to address the inadequacies of our professional learning training. And so that's really been ongoing. We had trainings that were required this school year. We had trainings that were also after school. We did in January do a proposal to our executive team to have more daytime trainings for special educators and general educators and related service providers and support staff. And based on our recommendations, that proposal was approved by our executive leadership, and we were able to increase the number of daytime trainings, which we know are very important, particularly for our staff who have second jobs, who have their families of their own at home. But we were able to leverage those additional trainings that were required, but to also bring them during the school day. On the next slide, you'll see the subsequent optional trainings that were offered throughout the school year, and that remains ongoing. Next slide again is additional offerings that we provide. And then we are working right now through our proposals of looking at those trainings for next school year in preparation for the 25-26 school year. The other thing that I'd like to share with everyone, and some of you on this Zoom this evening may have attended, but we had our inaugural Special Education Institute this month in May, and it was well received by over 300 attendees. We had over 20 principals that came. We had support staff, we had families, we had teachers, and it was just the feedback that we have gotten was wonderful. We had 3 different tracks. So if you were support staff, we kind of had a track for you, administrators, a track for them, as well as our teachers. And so we're just very happy about that inaugural institute, and we do plan to host that again next year. The other thing that we've done as part of our Strategic Plan 2.0 work group is to identify specific action steps that we want to involve our parents in. So we have listed them here for your review, which is Goal 1, Objective 1, Action Step 6, Positive Family Engagement Training. Goal 1, Objective 1, Action Step 7, IEP Parent Surveys. And then Goal 2, Objective 1, Action Step 10, Training to Understand the Service Delivery Models and Programs in Prince George's County. So that remains ongoing, and our teams will begin to reach out to those different family groups for those action steps. The other thing that we just completed this spring was our Hanover and Strategic Planning and Resource Management Office did conduct parent interviews and focus groups specifically with special education families to make sure that they were able to review the climate and culture survey data. There are specific questions that focused on students with disabilities, both for students as a student with a disability and both for families and parents to really look at the perceived notions of how families feel about students that are receiving services through under an IEP as well as under a 504. And so that has been completed. The team is analyzing that data. That data will then be turned over to the Department of Special Education as well as our equity office to really look at determined areas of need as we inform our work for next year. We've released our parent survey, and you'll see that up-to-date data this evening when Ms. Yvette Young presents our problem of practice data. We've released a toolkit that has been released. Again, we'll update that and see if there's any additional information that we want to provide in relation to next school year. We are through the final stages of our Child Fine Administrative Bulletin. We're targeting a release date of July 1st. A lot of the Child Fine information was definitely put into the Family Support Center, the Family Support Toolkit, but we did do a separate Child Fine Bulletin specifically on the Child Fine process, both as it relates to early childhood, school-age students, and private and parochial. So it's kind of looking at Child Fine through the lens of those 3 groups of students. And now I'm going to, one more update. Allow students with disabilities to participate in career technical education and specialty programs. So one of the things that we launched this year was a recruitment marketing plan to really increase the program awareness for students with disabilities and look at what those reasonable accommodations are for those students. So we definitely have completed that recruiting strategy. We'll get the data at the end of the school year about our efforts and how did that pay off. The other thing that we're doing is taking that same marketing strategy, but looking at it through the lens of our specialty programs and the arts to really develop a recruitment and marketing plan for those students and for families to be aware and students to be aware of our specialty programs in the arts. So that is in process. And then we, of course, updated the CSI data dashboard to specifically reflect how do you look at data for students with disabilities in those groups. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. David Reese to talk through our town hall meeting structure for tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Trinell. So this is town hall meeting number 4. And for those of you who have been a part of a few of these, this would be the same format that we've done the past 3 meetings. But for those of you, if it's your first time, or if you are someone who is driving, I'm actually going to read through the slides to make sure that everybody's crystal clear about what it is that we're doing and how we're going to move through the night as we get your good feedback about how we can get better. All right. So the norms for the SECAC and PGCPS Town Hall meeting number 4 are listed on the slide. And it says that tonight's town hall will focus on the topic collaboratively working with schools to increase family engagement. This town hall meeting will be structured as a collaborative work session in order to solicit recommendations and feedback on the strategies that we in PGCPS should consider on how schools can collaboratively work to increase family engagement. So we want you all to put on your thinking caps, dream big, and give us your best ideas around how we might be innovative and do things differently, or maybe do more of some things that you've seen happen before to make an impact. There will be designated note takers for tonight's town hall meeting. And throughout the series of town halls, we've had notes taken, and the SECAC board will use this information to create a comprehensive report that will be provided to PGCPS school district at the end of the school year. If you would like to provide any written recommendations or feedback, or if you have questions, we have an email address for you there that you can click the hyperlink when you have access to it, or I'll read it out loud, jhflc.familysupport, FAMILYSUPPORT @pgcps.org. And thank you, Marcy, for putting that in the chat for us. So always stay in communication. Following the first town hall meeting, the Department of Special Education reviewed all the feedback and shared during the town hall the feedback shared in the survey after the town hall and information from calls to the Family Support Center for this school year. The Department of Special Education identified common themes across all of the data, and the top 2 themes related to the implementation and adherence to students' IEPs and social, emotional, and behavioral concerns, which we addressed in previous town hall meetings. And then we all came together and tried to figure out what the third topic would be, and we decided in collaboration with the SECAC board that today's town hall topic would be how to increase family engagement. And as you see on the slide, it says, can you go back one slide, please? It says, we hear you, which means the fact that we're focusing on increasing family engagement is because we're listening to what you're saying, you want us to get better at, and we think that this is a really nice format to kind of get some feedback from you all. Next slide. And here's some more norms. We're going to ask that you use titles of people rather than individual names if you're referring to someone in your comments, like the principal of the school, as opposed to like David Reese at David Reese Elementary. We don't want to call people out by name like that. We ask that you refrain from using any vulgar or disrespectful remarks, inappropriate language, or make personal attacks against anyone. And if the norms are not followed, we might mute you or remove you from the meeting. Now, I want to go back to that first bullet, because if you're writing a comment or there's something specific you want to have an answer to, feel free to be specific with the person and the school so that we can best support you. Otherwise, in the verbal space, we ask that you refrain from using individual names. Next slide. And last, and most importantly, because of confidentiality, we ask that you refrain from discussing your specific student case. If you have concerns about your child's specific case, please complete the link and someone from the Family Support Center or the Special Education Leadership Team will follow up with you. And your adherence to these guidelines will enable the town hall meeting to process smoothly. So those are our norms for tonight. And now I'm going to actually review the problem of practice consultancy model before we hear from Ms. Young, who's going to be our presenter for tonight. Next slide. Okay, so if you haven't been with us before, the problem of practice consultancy model is a useful tool that will help PGCPS staff expand their thinking on how to get new ideas to bring to a particular and concrete dilemma by tapping the knowledge and experience of the participants, which means you. So here's how it works. We're going to have Ms. Young share the problem of practice from her perspective around family engagement in the system, where she'll provide a 10-minute overview of the dilemma and some of the major issues or challenges that we're having. Then she's going to stop, and there'll be an opportunity for you all to either in the chat or out loud ask questions that you have about the dilemma. And then we're going to ask Ms. Young to kind of turn off our camera and then start to listen very carefully to your conversation. So we want you all, the participants, to have conversation with each other about the dilemma and offer potential solutions that you want the system to consider. And then Ms. Young is going to reappear, come back on the microphone, and then share her reflections to all the ideas that you all have. And that's how our process is going to work for the evening. And with that, the framing question for this evening is, what strategies should PGCPS consider to enhance how schools can collaboratively work to increase family engagement? Okay, so Ms. Young, are you ready to give us 10 minutes of your overview of the dilemma?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Dr. Reese, and
Got it.
good evening, everyone. We're excited for tonight's session. The Department of Special Education is dedicated to fostering strong and collaborative relationships with our families. And as was stated before, we have heard your concerns regarding current communication and collaboration practices and acknowledge that there's been gaps, and we're committed to improving how we connect and support you. Now, why is that important? Because research studies have consistently shown that parent engagement contributes to higher student success. To better understand and address issues, we've collected data. So if you've ever talked to us at the Family Support Center, we always emphasize data. And so for those of you who are numbers people, this is your night. For myself, I'm going to ask grace and mercy while I present some data and some numbers that we want to share. As Dr. Reese said, your feedback is valuable and very important. Next slide, please. So what have we done this year? This academic year over 2024-2025, we've facilitated a number of programs here in the district to intentionally focus on family engagement. For example, the overall systemic equity focus this year was enabling the unique brilliance of students with disabilities to flourish. At the beginning of the year, administrators and teachers participated in staff development on engaging families in the IEP process. You see some of the other activities that we facilitated. Maybe some of you attended our Parent Autism Summit, our Parent Stronger Together book study, or some of the activities at individual schools on autism, mental wellness, or other resources. So I'm going to turn it over to Marcy now to facilitate a poll.
All right. So we're going to have two polls tonight, and we would love for you to answer them. It's not required, of course, but we would love for you to answer them. So the first is, annually, the Maryland State Department of Education, or MSDE, provides a survey for parents of students with disabilities. And this poll has two questions, and I'm launching it now. Number one, are you aware of the survey? And number two, have you completed the survey? We'll give about 1 more minute to, I see lots of people answering already. And I'm putting it in the chat in Spanish as well. About 10 more seconds. It looks like most have already responded. And I appreciate those of you that are answering in the chat. I will document those as well. It should have popped up on your screen as well. All right, we're going to end the poll. And I'm going to share some responses. So it looks like 69% of you were aware of it. That's awesome. And have you completed it? 44% of you said yes. So Yvette is going to go through some of the data that is pertinent to our poll and our MSDE survey. I will say that it is mailed to you in the US mail, snail mail. But I will also put the link in the chat so that you're able to access it. And Yvette's I'll turn it over to her for the next slide.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Thank you, everyone who participated in the poll. Good news, most of you were at least aware of the survey, and maybe we can convince a few more why it's important to complete this Maryland State Department of Education parent survey. So the survey asks a series of questions to determine parent satisfaction. One overall question is whether parents feel that their child's school facilitates parent involvement. And as you can see on the screen, for last school year, and it's always a year lagging behind to get the results, but for last school year, 73% of preschool parents said yes, and 58% of school-age parents, so that is K through age 21 or K through 12, felt that yes, schools facilitate some parent involvement. And as you can see, for preschool, it exceeded the state average. For school age, it's below the state average in terms of satisfaction. But on the next slide, we take a deeper dive because the results on the previous slide are part of a larger survey of 24 questions that the state of Maryland asked families. And the target for satisfaction or meeting the target of success that the state sets is a moving target. So last year, we were considered to have met the target if 72.5% of respondents agreed with the statement. And as you can see, we met that target for a whopping 2 category areas. I am comfortable asking questions and expressing concerns to staff, and written information is written in words I understand. And there's a link that was put in the chat if you would like to take your time and your leisure to look at all of these numbers and statistics. 6 areas of categories we were approaching meeting the target, and then the rest, well, we fell short. So we also, on this survey, there's an area for families to write in comments. And what we did was we read the comments and grouped them into themes, into common themes. And based upon those themes, we came up with some further identifying information. So as you can see here on the screen, most parents wanted improved communication with the IEP staff or IEP team. That was 20.6% of the comments. Then 19.8% approved of services. So there were some positive comments. 9.7% had comments about vacancies and so forth. So what can we do? How can we get higher scores? It is important to for the state of Maryland to hear from you. Your voice matters, and it's very important. And so we pulled out 4 areas for school age surveys that we feel like we can make a positive impact if we can get more feedback from families. One is the school or the school system offers me training about special education issues. So that's an area of focus. Schools and or school systems provide me information on agencies that can assist with transition from school. The school or school system explains what options I have if I disagree with a decision of the school. And I was given information about organizations that offer support for parents of students with disabilities. Now, the information we get, you'll see here, we can only group it based upon the number of responses. And as you can see, the response rates have historically been low. So in 2022, 2023, there were 12,738 surveys that were sent to families. 378 were returned by paper, 105 online. So that was a 4% response rate. Last year, 13,802 surveys were sent out by the state. 361 came back on paper, 213 online. So that was a 5%. So if you do the math and you remember how many students are in Prince George's County Public Schools who receive special education services, you do the math and see how many families we are not hearing from. So we want you to know that the survey continues till May 31st. There's still time. Please, it's so important for your voice to be heard, so that we can understand better how your experience is with special education services, how the state wants to hear from you. As you can see on the screen, there's a QR code that you can still scan to complete the survey. There is a link that also can be accessed. You can type it into your browser to complete the survey. But that's not all. There's some other data we want to share with you also. Next slide, please. We at the Family Support Center are required to capture data for families who call us and ask us for help and support. And this is kind of small on your screen, but we categorize the calls into these areas, and we tabulate the results and share it. And on the next screen, we can see a graphic representation. As you can see, an overwhelming large number of the calls are about behaviors. And so over 270 of about 500 calls were about addressing children's behavioral concerns of students who have disabilities. Some calls were about supplementary aids and services, feedback about that, and then other calls were about least restrictive environment or the IEP process in general. The final data that we want to share is about the IEP survey after IEP meetings that was initiated this year, so we could take a closer look ourselves at parent satisfaction with the IEP process. As of May 26th, yesterday, there were 1,474 responses. About 173 schools have participated in the survey. Again, we can do the math. As you can see, we're still at a 4.4% response rate, and we are now sharing this with you so we can figure out how we can engage families in sharing feedback more. And I think there's another poll. turn it over to Marcy.
Let me get off mute. You are correct. There is another poll. So Miss Young and Miss Salmaron, who is also on the call with us, and Dr. Beth Hare are with the Family Support Center. And so we want to know if you are aware of the supports available in the Family Support Center, have you contacted the Family Support Center, or if you've received the survey link after the child's IEP meeting. So give me one moment to launch the second poll. And while we're launching the several poll, I see a lot of questions coming through, and there are hundreds of you on this call. So if we don't get to your question during the chat, or it's not a part of the town hall, please know that we follow up on every question that is submitted either in the chat or verbally in the town hall. So if we miss something, we apologize, but just know that we are following up with everyone. We'll give it about 15, 20 more seconds for folks to complete the Family Support Center poll here. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat the parent caregiver contact follow-up request. I do see some specific information regarding some families that are having challenges with IEP meetings and things like that. So I want to make sure you're completing that to have the Family Support Center follow up with you. And then I am also going to put in the chat, folks have been asking for the IEP survey link, so I'll put that in the chat as well.
So Marcy, just to ask you a quick question. So if I'm one of the family members who's never received the IEP meeting survey after something at the school, I know you just put it in the chat, but is it okay for me to fill it out now and send it in?
It is still open. And you can also reach out to your case manager and ask for the link, but I am putting it in the chat now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to end the poll so we can share some results. So it looks like 37% of you are aware of the supports that the Family Support Center provides. 17% of you have contacted the Family Support Center, and 28% of you have received the link for the IEP survey. So thank you for those, and please be assured that we're going to follow up on those results. And I'm putting in the chat right now the IEP survey. All right, Ms. Young, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Actually, David, I might be turning it back over to you.
Yes, you are turning it back over to me and I will receive it. But before I move into the questions about the dilemma, I do want to suggest that for those of you who are saying in the chat that you have not received the survey, you have it now. And please accept my apologies on behalf of the schools for not sending it to you after the meeting. But do know that yes, this is our first year doing this, the IEP survey, and we want to make sure that we communicate as clearly as possible in as many ways as possible that families should have access to the survey after every meeting. So you have it now, and we will continue to message to schools that you should be receiving it. So thank you for filling it out and giving us your feedback so that we can get better. Back to the dilemma. So there are some questions that we want to now have you all pose connected to the dilemma that Yvette Young just laid out. And so I want to give you two different models of the types of questions that you might choose to ask, because we want to make sure that the questions are not related to a personal concern, but there is a way that you can phrase it so that it represents a broader concern. For example, someone might say, I have a concern about all families understanding the data that's presented in IEP meetings. How do you help families from diverse backgrounds understand all of the data that the teachers are talking about? So that's one type of question you might ask. Another question might be, how do you help parents who work 2 jobs during the day know what's happening with their children? Because we're working so hard and it's difficult to connect with the school during the school day. We have heard you in the past where because I'm looking at the number of people in the room, and I think we have about 160 people on the call right now. And we thought about breaking you all into breakout groups to have smaller conversations. But in the past, we heard from you that you all want to be in the same space to hear everybody's ideas. The issue is, though, we have 160 people. So we're going to ask that you be patient with us as we try to get as many voices in the room as we can. And also feel free to use the chat as much as you can just to pose questions right now so that we can make sure that we're getting as many questions in the air as possible. All right? And so what I'll do right now is open the floor. So if anybody has a question pertaining to the dilemma, please go ahead and ask it, and we'll try to get an answer for you. And then we'll also start facilitating from the chat. And I think Janice Cornish might be up with the first question.
Thank you. It's actually Janice, but that's okay. It's the spelling.
Janice, it is not okay. Thank you, Janice. Thank you.
It's okay. So the original question was about parent engagement. And I have posed this question since my son was in 3rd grade. He's a rising senior come class of 2026. So congratulations to all parents of class of 25 graduating and class of 26 graduating coming up. Parent engagement for, and I use quotation marks, special education. It's not encompassing as far as I'm concerned. And I say that because I need for special education to be broadened. Special education seems to be special education for 1 or 2 sets, and it's not for all. So is there a way to broaden the special education spectrum? And I say that because when we talk about, when most people talk about special education, they're talking about either students who have disabilities, blind, amputations, deaf, or autism level 1. My son doesn't fall into that. And there are a lot of students that don't fall into that. So is there some way that those parents of those students can get some situational help too? Because we feel left out. And because we feel left out, we don't come to things like this.
That's a great question. Thank you so much. And do we have a response from someone in the house? And it's going to be a quick response because we want to get as many questions as possible.
Thank you for this.
Not hearing a response right now. What I want to do is remind us all that what we're talking about tonight are the strategies around family engagement. And I can try to connect this question to engaging families who have students with disabilities that are not in certain categories. And so the question is, how can we broaden what we mean by students with disabilities to be more inclusive? And sometimes it's good for a question to just sit without a response. That doesn't mean we're not hearing you, but we're going to move to the next question from Luciana Hopkins.
Yes, hi. So let me make this broad. What are the expectations of the special education teacher when when a child is taking a test with the special education teacher? Is the expectation that this teacher helps him with the test? Or is he supposed to take the test are they supposed to take the test on their own to see exactly where they are? And if this did occur within a school, who would be that point of contact when the principal has been unresponsive?
Thank you for that question. I'm actually going to ask that you complete the form with the specific situation so that we can be sure to get back to you. And I'm seeing Marcy nod because that's something we want to make sure.
Okay, so I need a specific person. I don't want to complete a form. I've been completing emails. I've been sending email. Like, I need a person that I need to be able to get in touch with that can do something, that can hear my voice, that can help me understand how this works, especially when I have not been in a meeting that I've been requesting all school year. And I'm not, let me apologize if I'm
I
very
understand your
frustrated.
passion. I
I'm
get it.
frustrated. This is my child, and it's like, as I'm seeing some of the comments, the kids are categorized. They are, put into this one group, and everybody doesn't have the same situation.
Understood. So I think there's
David,
a
I'm sorry, I'm going to
phone
interrupt for
number.
just
Yes,
1 second.
please.
I hear your frustration. I do, and I want to connect you with someone who is very specific. So
Thank
in our family support center, I left the number in the chat, 301-431-5675. We have 3 staff members there, Dr. Beth Hare, Miss Yvette Young, who you've heard tonight, and Angela Salmaron, who's our parent liaison. You can contact them and one of them will be happy to talk to you personally. And that number is directly to the Family Support Center.
Thank you so much. And I think
Thank you.
this actually fits with what we're talking about tonight around how do we increase family engagement. So I'm hearing
I think I looked at
passion.
special education, like IEP.
Edith Martinez, are you raising your hand to speak? Not yet? Okay.
Hello, yes,
Yes, Edith Martinez, what's your question? And then
Yeah.
we'll hear from Teresa Smith.
I do. I just had a IEP meeting today, and they were discussing with the team about my daughter. She is being with this program ever since she was a toddler, and I've been seeing a lot of changes when she's 4. It seems like she needs a lot of support. The school diagnosed her with ADHD, and she was just recently diagnosed with autism. But in school, when we were talking during the meeting, I think that she's struggling because she's being diagnosed with the 2. She has those 2 diagnoses. I asked if there's any support to autistic kids. They're gonna do some support. They said they're gonna follow some strategies, some goals. But I would like to know if they do provide with any support in regards to that, because nobody have mentioned. I'm the one that I keep asking and checking on that. And that's my question, if there's any like specific support to those kids with struggling with those diagnoses.
Thank you, Edith, for the question. Marcy?
David, I did put in the chat a couple of times the individual follow-up link if there are specific questions they have related to their child's specific disability. But I also want to acknowledge that Mrs. James and Mrs. Wilson are having trouble getting their hand up. And so they had messaged me in the chat, both of them, to make sure that we include them in our question piece.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I have Ms. James written down. So I want to make sure, and I hear that people have a lot of specific questions about their children, and I know that people want to get their questions answered. This space tonight was really designed for hearing questions about the data that we presented around the dilemma, and we want to make sure that we use the time to get as much of that as possible. And I'm not trying to silence people who came to a meeting who want questions resolved, so we just ask that you complete the form, and then we'll be sure to get to you. And I'm going to hear from Teresa Smith, who has a question about the data.
Yes, I have a question about what you guys have proposed tonight, and I just want to thank you all for this format. Okay, so my question is, how can we get school teams to see families as partners and team members while recognizing our individual learning styles and trust our engagement? And just to tie this into the scenario, you may have families who understand data analytics and have critical contributions. So again, how can we get the IEP team to trust families through our engagement?
Thank you so much for that question about trusting our engagement. Is there a response from the group? And it's okay, because we want to hold that question, because I think the more questions we get out, that will allow for the families to then give us some problem solving around the questions that are out there. So trusting the ways that families engage is really important. Thank you for getting the question out there. And I think it was Tasha James. Am I saying the name correctly? Sorry, Ms. Young.
I was just gonna address Ms. Smith's question. It's the goal of our collaboration with the Family Support Center is to help, I think, bridge the gap of communication to help families be able to be more informed about how to communicate in a manner that is data driven, in a manner that addresses concerns in the way the school team views it. So if we're seeing things through the same lens, I think partnership would be forged better.
Thank you so much. And we'll hear from Jennifer next.
Hi, thank you for having this. This is my first one. It's great. So I guess my question is very similar to the last one about parental engagement, where, one thing that I guess I'm not supposed to be specific, so I'll just say in general, some parents I think have encountered this sort of idea that coming into the meeting with teachers, or when you try to talk to a principal or a vice principal, it's like you're automatically seen as this person's going to come in and complain. I was thinking, like, do I have a face that looks like I'm going to complain? When I really just want to, engage and be involved. And so I wonder if some of that training, like the training on topics can be great, but training for, I don't know, teachers or administrators could be on, sort of them also bringing something to forge a really respectful relationship, where a lot of us aren't coming in to just be mad at something right away. We get frustrated when we don't hear back, or when we're treated like we're trying to, do something that we're not supposed to do. And I think a lot of times I just want to, ask questions and know all the information. So maybe something about that, about building a relationship on trust, but also, not having kind of negative assumptions going into it. Because I try to, on my side, not have negative assumptions going into those meetings. But it gets hard when, people seem to think you might be there just to yell at them or complain.
Thank you. And I'm gonna rephrase your question just to pose it to Yvette in a slightly different way. Yvette, any suggestions around how we can help staff members not see families as a problem when they come to inquire about their child?
So I think that's an excellent question also, Dr. Reese. And I know that we are in the process of ongoing training to staff. There'll be more in the next year to help staff understand family engagement and partnership. We can't do it alone. We need families to participate as partners with us. And we are working very hard to help share information. One of the things that we do when families call, we reach back out to staff. We try to see, well, what's going well? And if we could focus on strengths and what's going well, we could help that child optimize their true potential.
Thank you so much. And I think the key word in partnerships is that there's a partnership. So one entity should not have more power or control or agency. It really needs to be in collaboration and partnership. And so I think some more work to reinforce that concept is going to be important. Marcy, there was a second name after James who you said was trying to get a hand up.
Miss Lisa Wilson.
Miss Lisa Wilson, you have the floor next.
Thank you so much, and good evening to all of you super moms out there. I just want to make a comment about parent engagement, but I want to talk about it not from the position of strength, although I respect what the facilitator was just saying. I want to talk about it from the position of weakness, because communication is very important. We email, we call, and they tell us, call your principal, call your principal, call your principal. The principal never responds. The principal never responds to emails. The principals, they do not respond to phone calls. So my question for the team today presenting this, trying to answer the question of parent engagement. when are we going to talk about school accountability? Because I think you can't have accountability, you can't have engagement without accountability. And my final question is this lack of responsiveness by these public officials being communicated to the CEO? Because I believe if we unveil the accountability and the enforcement of a culture that is responsive to basic emails, I think we will cross the bridge for parent engagement.
Thank you so much. A response from the team?
That we do have in the slide deck that we'll show a little bit later, the escalation process that we have shared with families. If the principal is being unresponsive, which is focusing on the instructional director in the area office who supervises the schools. And so we've encouraged families in our escalation process that if they are not hearing back from the school, our superintendent has made it clear that we are to respond to emails within 48 hours. If we're out of the office on leave or vacation or attending an offsite meeting where we have limited access to email, there should be an out of office that addresses that, but we are to respond within 48 hours. I'll show you that slide as we get to the end of this town hall this evening of what the escalation process is. But again, if you're not hearing from principals, it definitely should be escalated to the area office. Each principal does have a supervisor who is an instructional director. That instructional director then reports to our associate superintendents for Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3, depending on the type of school that they have. And so we've been very clear in that escalation process that we'll share at the end. In terms of shared accountability and school accountability, when concerns are brought to our attention, we do share them with the principal as well as the principal supervisor, depending on what the issue is. And I do want parents and families to know when it comes to personnel decisions or personnel issues, those actions cannot be shared with you as family members, but I do want everyone to know that they are addressed with those individual supervisors. When there are concerns and we see that there has been lack of responsiveness or there has not been follow-up, the appropriate supervisors do address that with our staff.
Thank you so much, Janelle Bowman. And there's a lot happening in the chat that's going to be really good conversation for our open floor conversation where the families get to kind of talk to one another and offer some solutions. So I want to name that and try to, in the next 4 minutes, get as many questions as we can. So we'll hear from Lauren and then Amy.
Good afternoon. And so it's two-part. I'm very curious to see what types of trainings on cultural competency and just basic awareness for parents that parent special needs children. Data would suggest that about 43%, well, parents have a 43% higher chance of having a neurodivergency or some type of special need themselves if they have a child that does. So as we address engagement, some of the strategies that we employ with our kiddos in engaging them to be scaled up to engage parents better. What does that look like? And is that a thought process that you guys have delved into?
Great question, team. I can take this one, Lauren. So in my role in the system, I do a lot of work with equity, and we've done a lot of work this, as you heard earlier in the presentation, around creating awareness around the system around students with disabilities. This year, we are having a summer series where our very first learning will be an invitation to families and staff to be in the space together to begin having conversations around awareness like what you just talked about. Now, we're a very large district and we try best to communicate about how these things are happening, and we just have worked out the details on it. So I will make sure that anybody who received this email will have an invitation to that session that we're having this summer, so that as many of you who can come, and then we'll see what springs from there. But I think you make a very valid point. Amy. And if you have a question about the data that was presented, we really want to hear that before we start getting into our open conversation. Amy Jackson?
Yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. I wanted to first thank you all for doing these types of forums and town halls because it has been very helpful. And I am one of the parents who has contacted your office for both my children, one who's still in school and one who has graduated. So I think that I've learned the most from you informing the parents that they are part of the IEP team and that you have the right to disagree and also advocate as much as you need to for your child. That has been very helpful in my experience. Also, with dealing with the school staff and administration, I think that when the principals and others are not involved, it's because they don't understand what to do. And when they get in those situations, it puts their back up against the wall, which makes it confrontational. And that is very unfortunate. My last comment is that I have also experienced recently with my child wanting to go into the specialty programs. That has been kind of a very difficult process because again, they'll have meetings and they'll have parent discussions, and the special education aspect is left out. And if you ask about special educations and what type of supports they have for the audition process, for example, for the performing arts schools, they don't know. They don't. And I've actually heard one of them representatives say we don't have a process for that. So there are schools for special education, and all schools should be for special education because they need to be included in the least restrictive environment. Right. So I think that there is a mindset that really needs to be reshaped so that people understand that disabilities come in all levels, in all shapes, sizes, and formats. So there is no child that cannot learn.
Thank you.
And the responsibility is on the teachers and the parents working collaboratively to help your child flourish in whatever environment they're in. So I think that needs to be kind of shouted to the rooftops. And I wish that there was a way that parents could get together more in these type of discussions so that we can share experiences and help one another along. Because that would be very helpful.
Thank you so
Ms.
much.
Jackson, I just wanted to make one comment. One of the things that we did do with our specialty programs in the arts for all the auditions that took place, there were members from my team from the Department of Special Education that actually supported students on site if supports and accommodations were needed. And so we partnered. You heard me talk a little bit earlier about that we're working on a marketing and support campaign about increasing the number of students with disabilities that are in our specialty programs in the arts. So again, one of the things that we did do as an activity is to make sure that we had special ed staff on site at the auditions. I am happy to report that we did not, at any of our sites or any of our auditions, our students are resilient and did not want any help from us to support them with their auditions, but that is something as an upgrade that we did this year across our systems during the audition process to make sure that we had staff on site to support any of those accommodations that were needed.
That is awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, Ms. Bowman. And I would love to discuss more of my experience with it so that I can provide you some feedback. Because like I said, one thing that I have learned throughout this process is the need to be vocal and to ask questions. And to make sure that you hold people accountable, and if you get a comment or something that tells you, well, we don't support special education, that is not true. And they will tell you that. And I've been told as recently as this year that this might not be the right environment, for your child. And that, I don't know if there's not a right environment per se. We have to figure out what is making it not the right environment so that we can address those things. So again, I appreciate all that you do, and thank you so much.
So Amy, thank you for addressing your concern. I will direct you to the chat where Teresa Smith wants to be in contact with you. So feel free to
Okay.
reach there as well. That as she's
All right. Thank
just
you.
reaching out to offer support, I suppose, right? So make that connection. I want to
Okay.
I want to name what's happening in the room in terms of there's a lot of questions and then there's limited time. And I don't want to ever cut anybody off. But what I would like to do right now, if you have your hand up, we're going to transition to the part of the protocol where we'd be having group discussions and recommendations. So, and we really would like to attach it to the idea of family engagement as is presented from the data. And I know that people have a lot of other concerns as well. So for those of you who have your hands up, if you could start the discussion off, not by asking a question, but trying to frame your question in terms of a recommendation so that we can hear the thoughts that you want us to start thinking about. And we'll go in the order that I see them. And I think it's Moran and then Angela. Maran Abai?
Yes,
Yes. Am I saying how do you say your name?
That's good enough.
Okay.
uh, I'm trying to give, the challenges I have in terms of understanding the environment where my daughter, attends, or, it's a learning environment. So for me, how do you determine or verify or confirm whether the recommended student to teacher ratio is maintained in the school? Based on the recommendation of the county school system, if I take an example, my daughter, she, because of her specialty, education requirement, she's a sick child. She has to attend a class where the student to teacher ratio is 5:1. But actually in the school where she attends now, the number of students is random data. I had a chance to attend. There were 16 students, but the full-time actual was 17. It happened to be one of them was absent. And I asked her to sit in the class for 2 hours. I mean, the teachers were putting the effort, really in difficult environment, but it is not really a learning environment. I can confidently say it is not really a learning environment because the large number of students at the same time, children have variety of problems. You deal with one and then we do the next one and the next one, 2-3 hours is gone. They don't even have a chance to sit down and talk to each of students on everyday basis. I don't believe that would happen based on the 2 hours experience I had. So, and then we communicated to the school, well, we don't have a resource for the answer in the IEP meeting. So if there is no way that you can regulate or make assure that the resources available to convey that education in a way that your own evaluation system, the recommended ratio of student to instructor, I don't think, how would we expect to have an outcome that is that helps the kids?
Thank you. And recommendations or suggestions from Angela. Angela Watson. No, then I want to hear from Tasha James. I thought I
I'm
caught
sorry.
it. It's
I'm
okay,
sorry.
Angela, go ahead.
How you guys doing? I was referring to the data that you guys have provided with the survey and noticing how many parents did not have access to it or responding to it. If there was a way that, I know that there's so many kids in the county, but if we had like a region of team leads that could follow up with the parents, or having a way that when the school's not doing what they're supposed to do, because there's no accountability with most of these schools, that because most of these numbers I had to dig and search and find. So when you guys realize the low amount of participation on these surveys, not necessarily people not responding to them, did the schools provide them? So if there was a way to kind of circle back around to however many kids in the county that you know have IEPs or disabilities, and the amount of numbers that you're receiving from parents, because I'm pretty much sure 95% of the parents have something to say, because these are our kids. So if you're not receiving that on your end, if there was some way to have a level to, I get you might not want to provide these resources or information to people who's in charge, but I had to dig, and that should not be the case. There should be some level of, if you're having issues with this school, you can contact this person. So just in regards to that data that you guys provided, the survey, I mean, you had a higher percentage of people who didn't get it after the IEP meetings than you did those that did. So that's just my way to kind of say, is if there was a way that you guys could circle back around, not to every parent, but a great percentage.
Thank you for the suggestion around the circle back. And I want to make sure Tasha James gets into the conversation. Tasha, are you there? Okay, Tasha, when you're there, let us
Yes.
know. Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. Hi. I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
had issues with my phone. Just to brief on what the other parents' concerns were, and as far as the schools and the accountability, I'm with the other parent as far as there should be some kind of system where you want us to have an IEP meeting and request in writing, and somebody else follows up on the IEP meeting, because I in particular have been waiting since March 20th for an emergency IEP meeting. And I have done the process as far as speaking to someone in support and reaching out to the school. And the person that's in support is frustrated because I'm constantly calling them because the school isn't doing what they're supposed to do. And there's got to be a better way, because now we're getting close to the end of the school year and my child still has not had this IEP, and my child has been failing for the majority of the school year. And I understand that y'all are focusing on data but you don't have any data if there's no information to collect, because the parent isn't getting the help and the support that they need. So that's my question is, what is the chain of the process to be able to get help for my child if the school isn't responding to the support people? So that's my concern.
Thank you for expressing that concern. And I know you're on your phone. There is something
Yes.
in the chat that I'm not sure if you can access it right now.
Mhm.
But I am, and I don't want you necessarily call your email out loud, but I want to make sure that we can get back to you directly.
Mhm.
So give me a moment to think, and I'm going to find you
Okay.
back. All right. And we're going to figure out how to
Okay.
make sure we resolve that.
Dr.
Okay,
Reese, we
thank
should
you.
have a registration on file with an email address from Ms. James, so we
Perfect.
can actually send her a direct link to the information that was in the chat. Ms. James, we'll send you a direct email based on the email that you registered with for this evening.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you. For those
welcome.
of you who are on phones and not computers, thank you for naming that so we can figure out how, because the technology can be a barrier. We don't want that to be the case. We'll hear from Cecily and then Tanisha and then Lavina with your suggestions and recommendations.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for this town hall. This is the first time I've signed up and participated. So one recommendation I did put in the chat about, or one question I had, I guess I put in the chat about training staff, non-special education staff, on how to manage children with varying disabilities, and being able to pivot, giving them some resources and tools, because as many people have mentioned, every child is different. Every day is different. Sometimes every minute is different. And so being able to manage that, um, if there's not like a paraprofessional or something in the classroom that can help balance that out. Because the higher grades, it's just a teacher in the class. And you know, I could not do their job. So I give I respect the amount of work and effort it requires to manage so many kids in the classroom. But they need to be trained because they don't know how to manage children. And if they don't meet a certain expectation or perform in a way that they, you know, think they should act, they either typecast them or just set them to the side, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is how to for the IEP, the pattern that I've noticed over the last 5 years or so is that there's a lot of focus on the social emotional piece because that's a strong challenge for some kids. But then the academics piece gets lost. And so, you know, as another parent mentioned, you know, having a child that's, you know, doing poorly in school, you know, and because they're so focused on the social emotional and getting them to behave and act in the way that they should be acting, um, you know, it gets to their detriment because they end up failing, right? So something's not working. And even as a parent, continually saying, okay, this is great, but they also are failing. So we need to tackle both, right? So giving schools some resources on how to, and I think someone mentioned it about having different learning modalities based on a child's ability. There should be flexibility in the school for that, for different children. So that's what I would encourage, like the county or the district and schools to figure out different curriculums and flexibilities around academics and grades, learning modalities, and then also training staff, non-special education staff on how to manage children with varying disabilities. Thank you.
These are all very clear, concise recommendations. Thank you so much. And Tanisha, and then Lavina. Lavinia.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My recommendation will be surrounding compensatory services. I think that when a school has in a child's IEP that they should receive certain services that this child is entitled to, and the school is obligated to provide these services to them, point blank, period. We shouldn't have to go to the state and file complaints and say that the county owes us these compensatory services, and then for the county to still not provide those compensatory services. According to the state, each service that is not provided to each child within their IEP, where it says they're granted these services, it should be hour for hour, minute for minute, second for second, period. And even if the parent does not provide these, like does not make a complaint for their child when the services are not provided, the county should still provide those services even without a complaint because it is due to each child. And it should be up to the school to make sure that all of these services are provided, and this is not what's being done. You have compliance supervisors not knowing the law, not providing what the child needs, and even when it is recorded in an IEP meeting, that compliance supervisor is still lying about it in PWNs. So I'm just saying for the county to do the right thing for all of these children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm picking up on like knowing the law. And I'm going to ask, because of the acronym you use, PWNs, can someone clarify what that means?
It's called a prior written notice.
Thank you.
Prior written notice.
Prior written notice. Want to make sure that we're all clear about all of the words being said. And Lavinia.
Yes, hi everyone. I'll be really brief. So basically, just to piggyback what others have been saying tonight is the awareness. I think that what would help the community is if the general education teachers, especially the principal, the administrators, that they are also at these meetings and involved and engaged. Because my son is at a regional school, and what I've noticed is that when everyone has awareness about, look, people with disabilities, they're a part of the community, they're one of us, then it's like they kind of become like looped in and it's center stage in their mind. I think what's happening is that on one hand, because many of our children do have different needs, but as human beings, we all have different needs, it becomes compartmentalized. So what happens is that you have those of us in the special education community feeling isolated and not heard, when many times even the principal or the special education coordinator, they may not know. But if they're engaging with us and we're engaging with them regularly, then it becomes second nature that, let's look at the abilities of all kids, not just general ed. Also, just really quick, I want to add is just to piggyback on what several other parents have said, is that not all children with special needs have IEPs. Sometimes, they get to where they're no longer needed. They have the 504. I think that will also help because many people aren't aware of the 504. Some look at it as, is it special education? Is it not? Because the school tends to look at the counselor handles the 504. And it's like, one counselor. So I think again, if we just kind of blend the general and the special education, like what are the needs of the children, and stop compartmentalizing it, our kids will get what they deserve. Our kids we'll also feel like that we're being heard. So that's all for me. Thank you.
No, I hear you. Thank you for that. I'm noticing some love in the responses. I want to point out something that Antoinette Barber said. I'm going to go to a portion of what was written in the chat at about 7:52 that says that they know that there was an agenda for tonight, right? That we had a meeting and a program that we were a plan that we're trying to get through. But there are clearly frustrated parents who do not trust the system and the processes, and these issues need to be addressed first. And then the suggestion is use all communication channels, websites, emails, text, social media, etc. So thank you to Antoinette for offering your concern, stating the tension that I'm feeling as facilitator, right? Where I know there was a specific plan that we had, and I'm trying to hear what's in the room so that we can get to the resolution that's mattering. So we can talk about what's on their hearts and minds. Not easy to balance both. But we're going to lean into this hard work. So thank you for noting that data. Lauren, I'm not sure if your hand is up again, but we're in the interest of time. I'm going to try to call on the few people who we haven't heard from, and then we're going to hear from Yvette Young. And Lauren, if we move quickly, I'll come back to you. So Olu,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lauren, for understanding. Oluwasi Mindele.
Yes, that is correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, I heard, what the parents have said, and I've heard staff. So as a parent, I think part of the resolution would be training for staff on what's equitable. And when I say equitable, because I think I put this in the chat, is I see that parents that can afford advocates get everything and the kitchen sink. And then the parents that cannot afford advocates or do not have the knowledge base just because they don't know are undercut, which means they get the bare minimum. And that's because of the lack of knowledge of the parent that this is something that they can request or something that they can ask for. So I feel as if there should be some type of training for special education staff, teachers, especially on the school level, on what is equitable, because I've seen staff members jump when a parent is coming into a meeting with an advocate. Whereas when it's a parent without an advocate, it's like, oh, okay, there's not a lot of effort put into it. It's like the staff members with the advocate, they have their I's dotted and their T's crossed. But parents without advocates or without the knowledge base or do not know what to ask for, they're not given what they need or what they deserve. And I also feel another engagement is perhaps there should be training for parents when they enter this special education, that they should be trained on the IEP process, how to read their IEP. What are they looking for? The same training that is given to staff on writing a goal for an IEP. I feel as if there should be an overall overview training for parents also on what to do, what to look for, in an IEP, how to read the IEP, So I think if we get that training out there for all
Absolutely.
stakeholders, I think we will see that engagement a little bit more.
Much appreciated on all fronts in terms of who has access, who has access and who gets information available to them in the way that they need it. Erica and then Janine.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for hosting this. I kind of wanted the other commenters actually pretty much said one of the points I was going to say. I think there is an equity problem in PG County right now, where some schools have great special needs departments and other ones, like a next neighborhood over, does not. And I hope that across the board, PG County can have a standardized special needs department that can address everybody regardless of where they live. Um, I think another thing someone else said also is that there needs to be an awareness campaign for this countywide. I feel like we're very isolated as parents, and it doesn't feel like PG County fully like welcomes us. Or I know there's an effort now that's it's getting better, but for a long time it feels like we were sort of just swept under the rug. And to have us be highlighted even in their communication emails coming out, and like how much they appreciate our students and for their brilliant minds or what they bring to the table diversity wise, you know, even having like awareness months be standardized across all the schools as well. Yeah.
Thank you for noticing some shifts and then saying that we still have to do more. And ways that our schools can really help shift the mindset. We're coming up on time, and I really want to hear people's voices, and people are still hanging in there. So if our last commenters could be faster, and then we're going to hear back from Ms. Young around what her reflections are based off of what we heard tonight. We're going to hear from, I think it was Katrina, Audrey, and Erica, your final.
I think you missed me. I'm Janine.
I'm sorry, Janine. I'm sorry.
No worries. I'll be very quick. And thank you for the opportunity. I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. And I'm grateful for all the parents that are on that have been giving so much feedback. So I'll be really quick. I feel like I'm not sure if I'm missing it or something, but there's not a lot of social workers or social work activity involved in this. And I feel like that would help a lot in kind of bridging the gap between parents, schools, advocating, making sure that staff has the training that they need just to make everybody accountable and kind of on the same page. Bringing in social workers or more social workers for like certain areas and things like that would be very beneficial. And that's pretty much all I had.
Thank you so much. And Katrina.
Hi, I think that's me if I'm the only Katrina
I can
on.
hear you. Yeah,
Thank
you got it.
Yes, I'd like for the county to address the shortage of speech therapists in the county. I don't understand where we're going with virtual speech therapy services. It's my understanding that even the virtual speech therapists, they're not even like, they don't even live in this, they don't live in the county. They live as far away in like the middle of America. So I don't even know how that's appropriate for some of our students that have significant speech deficiencies,
Okay.
like my son. And to force him to sit down and to attend to, I mean, he's in the first grade, to attend to a screen of someone talking to you, it's just, it's mind boggling how we're even spending that money on services that are not effective. They are not effective. In fact, I feel like they're harmful and beyond non-compliant. So I'd like for someone to address that. And also, you know, having found a private speech therapist on the private side that lives nearby the schools, apparently, can offer in-person therapy services. There should be some very easy mechanism or way that if parents do the groundwork for the county to find a private speech therapist, that you all can try to help us pick up the ball here and to get reimbursement a lot sooner than later. I've had my issues with the IP meetings and going in and being told no, 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 and I have an advocate. So to the sister just mentioned about advocates and the disparity, I agree with you 100,000%. But we still struggle. The ones that do have advocates, we still struggle with that as well. But it just seems like I'm just being told no at every turn, even when I'm doing the groundwork, even when I have a private therapist available to give him in-person services, they find a way to say no. Just took a long time to get here, but if that could be addressed by the county, I'd appreciate it, because related services is very important. Is as important as anything else. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you.
And Audrey?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you. I put mine in the chat because it's a little long, because you know what, I'm listening to all the parents that are talking. They have, I mean, you guys are missing the opportunity to pinning to us to get some of these answers. Because just like I said, you showed us the data, and I thank you for the data. But my question is, what are we trying to accomplish with that data? And then how will we know that the changes is an improvement with that data? And then last, what change can we make that will result in improvement? So, you know, creating smart goals, creating a parent and your department, you know, some parents off of this call or whomever, to sit down together, review the data, and figure out, you know, where do we move to making some tangible changes and solution on those low-hanging fruit items that you guys talked about, you know, when you presented this PowerPoint presentation. So that's what I have. Thank you.
That's a great idea, and that's the purpose of why we're all gathered here. And I know Janie Payne and Trinell Bowman hear you loud and clear, and we'll be reaching out to you specifically and some others moving forward. Erica, you're the final word for this portion.
Thank you for taking my call, and also thank you for this platform, which you actually need to do more of. But I'm glad the parents responded. But I just want to give the compliments for the schools that it is working, and all schools are not created equal. And I'm thankful for the services that my child has received at her school, because last year she was about to flunk out, and then this year, with the assistance from the IEP team and the administrator at the school, she made the honor roll the whole year. So I'm thankful for that, and also just to give the compliments to where it does work for some of the schools. And the form allows you to see where you need to make improvements. And just a word to the parents, just make sure your email is correct and up to date, so that you can make sure you do get those surveys and respond to them. Because I know we're all busy, and sometimes you're like, oh, I'll get to it later. But the only way they can help us is if they know where things are lacking, especially if you're at the school that your child attends. So that's a
Thank you so much. And before we transition, I do want to ask, we have several interpreters here tonight. Was there anyone from who's receiving interpretation support who had a comment that you all wanted to share with the room? Okay, I want to thank Lauren Boyd again for choosing to hold her comment, and maybe you can put it in the chat. We want to make sure we get as many voices as possible. And thank you to the team who've been responding to the chat that's moving fast that I'm halfway paying attention to because I'm trying to listen at the same time. We're now about to begin landing the plane, and we're going to hear from Yvette Young reflect back to us what's coming up for her with all of the comments and the heaviness of them that she's been listening to this evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reese. Thank you to everybody who shared feedback, comments. My first reaction is, just to kind of take a breath and to take it all in. Dr. Reese, I echo what you said. Some of it is very heavy. It's a lot. And I agree with those who said we need more avenues and opportunities for folks to express themselves. I think the comments and the themes are not a shock or a surprise, but it is good for folks to have an opportunity to voice them. I'm really thankful. I know I've taken notes. I'm sure my colleagues have taken notes on the suggestions. There was some real powerful suggestions that I think that someone mentioned about setting small goals. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And I think that we have some next steps that we can do to set some goals and move toward positive progress and improvement for the future. And shout out to the parent who said, social workers, thank you, as a social worker.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those reflections. I definitely want to say a couple more things before I think we might have a board member in the room. So if board members are present, I want to give them a moment to address the families who are here this evening. I also want to just reiterate the comments around helping our staff members understand the diverse ways that families advocate and the importance of hearing how they advocate and how they're showing up on behalf of their children and want to come in partnership. And yeah, and so we have to do more work there for sure. So that's definitely sitting with me. And yeah, that's my offering for tonight. Pamela Boozer Struther, at some point you were in the room. I know you're one of our board members from PGCPS. If you would like to address the group, please come off of mute. There you are.
Hi. Hey, good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank Ms. Bowman and the special education team and Dr. Reese and everyone who from PGCPS who led the session this evening and facilitated. I've been to all of the town halls this year, and this one certainly has particularly high level of engagement. And as a board member, I really appreciated as many of the comments in the chat that I could take in and the discussion. And I want to thank everyone who came on and shared their voice. I'm definitely, as a board member, experiencing the depth of the work and the engagement that has happened this year. I'm entering my 7th year as a board member, and as also a parent of a student with a 504 plan. So I engage in the system in many different ways. Now a high school parent. This year has been particularly effective for raising the parent voice and the numbers of parents. So I just want to thank everyone for making that a commitment for this year. And I know there's a lot of planning to do this summer and thinking about, how we'll enter next year. But I think at all levels of PGCPS, we've learned a lot. And I just want to thank everyone.
Thank you so much for being present in all of these and for your advocacy and holding us accountable for following through. And we have like I said, a number of times, a lot of work to do to continue to get better. And with that, I want to turn it back over to someone. It's always Marcy that I'll turn it back over to.
I
So
think
figured
it's
this was
me.
Marcy. Okay.
All right. So we had Miss Young reflect, but what I do want to say is that we so appreciate your engagement tonight. And this, our 4th town hall, is probably one of the most well attended. So we hear you loud and clear in that these were positive experiences previously and that you have significant concerns that you're expressing. We want to hear your voice too in a survey about the town hall meeting. So as we consider what we're doing moving forward in partnership with SECAC, what we can do to support you next year. So I'm going to put the survey link in the chat. So give me 1 second. You'll have to give me 1 second because I lost the link. And we will also send this out in an email, so don't feel like you have to click on it. You can certainly use the QR code here as well. And I think I'm turning it over to Janie for next steps and to close us out.
Yeah, so I too have appreciated tonight's session. It's been a rich session. And, you all know that saying that it takes a village. And so we've had our parents and caregivers, we've had our board represented. At one point, Dr. Judith White, the chief academic officer, who the Prince George's County representatives report to. She joined this experience as well. So really have been listening to what our parents and caregivers have to say. So we will be sending out the notes from this meeting. We'll also, as we do with every town hall, we'll be screening the questions that came up, getting responses, thinking about how the suggestions, how we can think about those in terms of action planning and the input from your survey. So we'll start planning for the 25-26 plan year. I heard a parent talk about, hey, we need more information about IEPs. As we think about the agenda for next year, really want you all to complete the survey, and that'll help us to think and give an agenda that best meets your needs. So I want to thank everyone for participating. I want to thank my colleagues in Prince George's County Public Schools for your work. Yvette, thank you so much for your presentation. I also want to do a shout out to co-chair Jamie Anderson Como, who's been the vice chair for SECAC. He'll be going off at the SECAC board and be an ex officio member as he moves. Actually, he'll be moving on, and so want to appreciate him and all the work that he's done, and the other members who've served for last year and this year. So good night, parents. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you at our session. We'll be starting in September. You all take care.
Thank you. Just have more slides share for those of you who will stay on. This is the steps to resolve. That's okay, Janie. The steps to resolve concerns that I referenced earlier in the town hall. I also want to link in the contact resolution list so that families have that as well if there's specific individuals in our district you would like to reach out to. On the next slide, I just wanted to give you the remind you of the special ed toolkit that we have, as well as our specific QR code and link if you have specific concerns that you want us to follow up on and address. And then lastly, I do want to acknowledge that my boss, Dr. Judith White, has been with us this evening, our Chief Academic Officer for Prince George's County Public Schools, who has also been listening in. And again, just want to remind all of our families, we do have an IEP parent survey. The link is provided here on this slide, and then we will also be posting the PowerPoint presentation on our website and on our YouTube channel, as well as the recording. So thank you all so much for attending with your recommendations, your questions, and your feedback. Have a safe summer. Thank you.